At the 2023 BravoCon, original RHOC star Vicki Gunvalson received the inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award. She attacks the network in a recent interview for taking advantage of one of her lowest points. "I will never forgive them," she declared. To learn more about what she is discussing, continue reading. The original of the OC, Vicki Gunvalson, frequently calls herself the original housewife. She appeared in the inaugural episode of the well-liked franchise as an original cast member. From Season 1 to her sudden termination during Season 14, she made frequent appearances on the Real Housewives of Orange County. Tamra Judge, her co-star, was also let go. For Season 17, Tamra made a comeback as a full-time housewife. Since her termination in 2020, Vicki Gunvalson has appeared on multiple occasions as a friend of. The insurance agent has allowed cameras to record every part of her life during her 14 seasons, including the fictitious cancer fraud run by her ex-boyfriend Brooks Ayers. Vicki Gunvalson adores whooping it up on the show, but she still holds the network accountable for the moment they went too far. What took place? Gunvalson, "Vicki, I will never forgive Bravo for taking advantage of during the darkest hour." One of the most recognizable scenes in the franchise's history was filmed by Vicki Gunvalson. The sudden death of her mother occurred during Season 10 of the show. The moment Vicki found out about her mother's passing was captured on camera. It was always assumed by fans that Vicki approved the filming of the poignant moment. However, it turns out that she didn't authorize them. Vicki Gunvalson reveals more about Bravo in an interview for a future edition of Vice's The Dark Side of Reality TV. When the phone rang, Vicki and her co-stars were at Shannon Beater's house playing bunco. However, the RHOC actress claims that before the show alerted her to the call, her family had been attempting to contact her for more than an hour. She also said that they didn't notify her right away so they could install cameras in Shannon Beater's wrapping paper room, where Vicki finally answered her daughter Brianna's call. Vicki Gunvalson, in a video clip provided exclusively to People magazine, laments the network. "The fact that production knew for an hour and chose not to inform me really irritated me. They were acting inappropriately, and I believe they ought to have pulled me aside and informed me that your mother had died. Speak to your daughter away from the camera. I will always hold Bravo accountable for that." Vicki Gunvalson of RHOC remembers the horrific moment she saw her mother die on television. She went on to say that she will never forgive Bravo for recording her response to her mother's passing. How do you feel about her stating this after all these years? Vicki Gunvalson, the original OG of the OC, is no stranger to drama. For over a decade, she gave her life, her heart, her family, her career, and her deepest struggles to the cameras of the Real Housewives of Orange County. But now, years after stepping back from the Bravo spotlight, Vicki has finally opened up about a betrayal she says she'll never be able to forgive. And it didn't happen on camera. Not exactly. It happened when she was at her lowest, and Bravo, she claims, turned her tragedy into entertainment. The cancer scandal that changed everything. To understand Vicki's lasting bitterness, you have to rewind to Season 10, a season now infamous for the Brooks Ayers cancer scandal. At the time, Vicki was dating Brooks Ayers, a man who claimed to be battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The cast grew suspicious, and eventually the truth came out. Brooks had faked medical documents. The housewives were shocked, but none more than Vicki herself. Or so she said. The problem was, no one believed her. Producers zeroed in on the drama. Vicki's tears, her screaming matches, her defenses, they all made for explosive television. Viewers tuned in week after week as her world unraveled in front of millions. But what the cameras didn't show, Vicki now says, was the devastating emotional toll it took on her behind the scenes. She was not just heartbroken, she was humiliated. And worse, she felt used. "They didn't care I was falling apart." In a recent sit-down interview for a new reality retrospective project, Vicki finally let it all out. They didn't care I was falling apart. They cared about ratings. They cared about who could yell the loudest, who could cry the hardest on cue, she said, eyes glassy but voice steely. She recounted how producers allegedly encouraged cast members to push her about what she knew, and when she knew it. She says confessionals were edited to make her appear complicit, a pawn in Brooke's lie rather than a victim of it. I went home every night and cried. I was losing friends, losing trust. My kids were getting dragged into it. And not once did Bravo step in and say, "Are you okay?" What hurt the most, she says, wasn't just being painted as a liar. It was feeling like her humanity didn't matter. They took the darkest period of my life, a relationship where I was manipulated, and turned it into a spectacle. Tamra, Shannon, and the fallout. Her friendships with Tamra Judge and Shannon Beater, once unshakable, fracture in the fallout. And while time has helped repair some of those bonds, the scars from that season never fully faded. They were my friends, but back then, I didn't feel like they were standing with me. It felt like everyone wanted a storyline more than they wanted to protect someone who was drowning. In the years that followed, Vicki would be phased out of the show, demoted to Friend of the Housewives in season 14 and absent entirely by season 15. She called the demotion a slap in the face, but now believes it was part of a broader strategy to push her out after she had become too damaged by the Brooke scandal. They didn't want to deal with my truth anymore. They wanted new blood, new chaos. They used me, drained me, and moved on. A return? Not without an apology. Despite fan campaigns begging for her return, Vicki remains hesitant. She made a brief appearance in season 17, joining Tamra and Shannon for a much-hyped Tread Amigas moment. But she insists she won't come back full-time unless Bravo issues a real apology for how they handled her lowest moment. "I'm not saying I didn't make mistakes," she said, "but I deserved compassion, and I didn't get it." Even now, years later, she says Bravo executives have never reached out privately to check on her emotional well-being after the cancer storyline fallout. They were more interested in the aftershocks, in who would call me a liar next, than in helping me rebuild my reputation. I was their heartbeat, and they ripped it out. There's a bitterness in her voice that fans haven't heard before. For so long, Vicki wore her love of the franchise like a badge of honor. She was its lifeblood, she insisted, its heartbeat. But now, that loyalty has curdled into resentment. "I gave them everything," she said. "My family, my relationships, my soul. I let cameras into every vulnerable part of my life. I let them watch me fall apart. And when I needed them to treat me like a human being, they treated me like content." Vicki now says that she regrets ever letting the Brooke storyline become part of the show. If she could go back, she would have never introduced him on camera, or at all. "I thought I was in love. I thought he was the one. I thought Bravo was a family. Turns out, I was wrong on all 3 counts." Moving on, but not forgiving. These days, Vicki has refocused her energy on her business ventures and family. Her insurance company continues to thrive, and she frequently travels with her children and grandchildren. But she's not ready to let Bravo off the hook. "Forgiveness doesn't come easy when the wound never healed," she said. She's spoken at women's conferences about narcissistic relationships and emotional manipulation. But she's also candid about how much the show still haunts her. "I watch myself in those episodes, and I don't recognize that woman. She's broken. She's trying so hard to stay strong while the world calls her a liar." When asked what she would say to Bravo now, if given the chance, Vicki paused. Then, with the same fiery passion that made her a Housewives legend, she answered, "You made me, you broke me, and you never said sorry. That's why I'll never come back. That's why I'll never forgive you." A legacy complicated, but undeniable. Vicki Gunvalson will always be a part of Real Housewives history. Her explosive outbursts, her over-the-top love of whooping it up, her endless loyalty to the people she loved. All of it helped define a genre. But behind the glam and the gossip lies a woman who feels discarded, misunderstood, and ultimately betrayed. Bravo gave her a platform, but in her darkest hour, she believes they took her pain and turned it into profit.